What's going on, y'all? We're back with another UFC card builder. We're going to be looking at UFC 310. There's a lot of rumors going around, a lot of speculations on who's going to be the main event, who's fighting 309, who's fighting 310. And I'm going to build the perfect card for y'all. I'm not going to lie. We're going to end the year with a banger card, one of the best cards of the year. And you might be looking at a little spoiler with the thumbnail, but you'll have to stick around and see. Let's get into the main card opener. Peyton Talbott versus Adrian Yanez. Peyton Talbott has been calling for this fight. I think it's a banger fight. Two great strikers in that bantamweight division. I think it's a big jump up in competition for Talbott. And we kind of got to see where Adrian Yanez is at. I think this is a great stylistic fight. A fight the fans are going to love. And you know the UFC wants to push Peyton Talbott, a Dana White Contender Series alumni. He's flashy. The UFC seems to really like him. The fans love him. I don't see why not. Put him on a big card. Put him on a main card. And have him fight a fun fight that's very winnable for him. Peyton Talbott, low-key, could be one of the best strikers in that division. It's time to test that. It's time to test really how good this kid is. Peyton Talbott wanted this fight to be on the Sphere, which it didn't happen for whatever reason. So let's remake it for UFC 310. Why not? Of course, Peyton Talbott's a great fighter. He's not going to be as good since he's not fighting in Pride Month. But you never know. He might still be just as good in December. But I think this is a banger card to kick off the night, kick off that main card. Let's move on to the next fight on the main card. I've got another fun matchup, but very important for that division. I got Michael Venom Page versus Carlos Prates. We all know how good MVP is, one of the best strikers in all of the UFC, honestly. Very tricky on the feet, very hard to figure out. And then we got the rising contender in Carlos Prates. I think this is also a big step up in competition for a guy like Prates. The fighting nerds have been taking over the UFC. Carlos Prates looks really freaking good right now. He's the first person to knock out the Leech, which is super impressive. And in that fight, he wasn't just dominating. He was playing with his food, to be honest. I feel like he could have finished the job whenever he wanted, really. He was just kind of picking them apart and then found the KO shot and put him out. So this is a massive test for Prates' striking. And if he were to get through a guy like MVP, he's moving on up towards the title shot. Again, everybody loves to watch MVP fight unless he's fighting Ian Gary. It should be an interesting fight. Should be an entertaining fight. I think this is a banger matchup, and I want to continue to see these fighting nerds dominate. I mean, it's time to stop playing with these dudes. Keep giving them steps up in competition. You never know. The fighting nerds could all be champions one day. That's how good they've been looking. These dudes are on a tear running through the UFC. Let's do Carlos Prates versus MVP. Another fun fight on this card. Should be a stand-up fight. And not only that, it's a great fight for the division. If Michael Venom Page were to get a win, that's a great win on his record, and same thing for Prates. Moving on to the feature fight of the card, this fight's got to happen, bro. Petr Yan versus Deiveson Figueiredo. Two former champions, two unbelievably well-rounded fighters in the UFC. I know Yan has been struggling a little bit last year, but he's back in the win column. Figueiredo's on a tear in that bantamweight division. I think this fight has got to happen sooner rather than later. I think this is a must-have for UFC fans. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I think this fight needs to happen. It needs to happen. We cannot get robbed of this matchup. This is such a sick fight. This might be the most intriguing fight in the bantamweight division, at least in my eyes. But again, this one goes both ways. Low-key could be a number one contenders fight after Umar. This is a massive opportunity for both guys. Would be one of the best wins in that whole division. This is a massive opportunity for both guys. If Figueiredo were to go through Petr Yan, that might be his best win, to be honest, in his whole entire career. There are the Brandon Moreno wins, but this one's just as good in my opinion. Skill for skill, Petr Yan is up there with the best of the best. This is a banger fight. I need it. Inject it into my veins now, please, Dana. I think it's a great feature fight to put on this banger 310 card that I'm building right now. I know Dana needs to go ahead and hire me as a matchmaker. Put me up there with Sean Shelby, Hunter Campbell, you know, all them. Have me on the next Inside the UFC documentary on Roku. All right, let's move on to that co-main event. It's time to come back down to reality. We're getting carried away. We're getting too many sick fights going on. Let's come back down to reality. I'm just kidding. Charles Oliveira versus Dan Hooker. Book it. Dan Hooker is on a run right now. Charles Oliveira, obviously one of the best fighters in that division. We got bleach blonde hair and tattoos versus bleach blonde hair and tattoos. Loser of this fight has to dye their hair back and get their tattoos removed. No ifs and or buts about it. Low-key, I'm not going to lie, I think this could easily be a BMF title fight. Charles Oliveira, obviously one of the best lightweights. One of the best lightweights of all time, honestly. And then Dan Hooker coming off a super impressive win over Mateusz Gamrot. Pretty close decision, but this man's rolling. I'm all here for a Dan Hooker title run. And how does he get to the title? You beat a guy like Do Bronx. Now, would Dan Hooker beat Do Bronx? Probably not. But this is still a sick fight. I know Dana said he has some news for Charles Oliveira, and from what I've heard, obviously they're all rumors online, you don't know what to believe. It sounds like they really want to do Charles Oliveira versus Dan Hooker. Do Bronx has been in talks for a BMF title fight before, and Dan Hooker has said he's open to fighting for that title. Low-key, I can see a world where Dana White maybe strips Max Holloway, somehow takes the BMF off of him, and then sets up a new BMF title fight. The only reason I'm saying that, I'm not saying that Max Holloway doesn't deserve the BMF. Obviously, he does. But I don't think Dana really wants the BMF title fight going up on the line against Ilia Topuria for the Undisputed Championship. I think he wants the BMF to stick around for fun fights, just kind of flip-flop around the UFC. I think it'd be dumb if the BMF champion is now the UFC champion. Let's go ahead and take the BMF title off of Max Holloway's hands. If he were to lose to Ilia Topuria, he should automatically be granted a title fight for the BMF title whenever he wants. I am a little worried, though. I know Dana said he has some news with Max Holloway, which doesn't sound too good. Hopefully the fight with Topuria is not going to be off. From what I've heard, it sounds like the fight's still on. I don't have any inside information. I'm just seeing stuff on the internet. But it sounds like Ilia Topuria and Max Holloway is still on as of right now. So maybe we do have a BMF title fight, Do Bronx versus Dan Hooker. This is a sick matchup where I'd be torn. I wouldn't know who to go for, but I think it would be a war. I'm not going to lie. All right, let's move on. Let's settle down. Let's go to the main event. Belal Muhammad versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. This fight sounds like it is being targeted for 310, and I think it needs to happen. Belal wants it to happen by the end of the year. We all know Shavkat's ready to fight. Obviously, there's talks about McGregor-Chandler 310, which might not even happen at all. And then Arman's talking like Islam's going to come back and fight him in December, which I don't see any point of Islam trying to rush his injury. I think he should take all the time he needs to recover. Maybe fight in the spring if he's available that soon. But I think you do Belal Muhammad versus Shavkat Rakhmonov on a stacked card because I don't really know how many pay-per-views this would sell by itself. So let's build around it with big stars like Do Bronx, like MVP, and then a rising contender Peyton Talbott, and then a sick fight Yanez, Figgy. Y'all know I'm cooking up a nasty card right here. But this is still a sick fight, a fight that needs to happen. I wouldn't be mad if Usman jumped Shavkat for a title shot. I know that's a whole nother story because I don't really think Shavkat has earned it. But nobody's really the number one contender in that division, so I'm not mad at a fight with Shavkat Rakhmonov. But I think this is a much-needed fight for that welterweight division. I'm ready to see Belal Muhammad defend his title. And if he beats Shavkat, bro, nobody better say a word about Belal Muhammad anymore. This man continues to prove doubters wrong time and time again. He's like DDP, bro. I don't know how they do it. They just get it done somehow, some way. Everybody thinks they're trash, and somehow they find a way to win. It may not look the best, but they get the job done. But Belal Muhammad versus Shavkat, I think it's got to happen. Let's book it for 310. Let's push McGregor-Chandler back to 311 if that fight's ever going to happen. Low-key, I feel like I kind of cooked with Hooker and Do Bronx for the BMF title fight. Let's do McGregor-Chandler in January. Maybe the winners fight each other for the BMF title. Conor McGregor has 2 fights left on his UFC contract. Again, that is if he ever fights again. But maybe his last fight is for the BMF title. Maybe he goes out with the BMF title win. Or if he does that, maybe he re-signs a one-fight deal and you put Conor McGregor in a title shot. I know I'm coping. I know that's a stretch, but Dana for sure would love to see McGregor fight for a title again. And let's be honest, we all would. But is that going to happen? Nah. But anyway, that's going to do it for me. This is my UFC 310 card builder. Y'all let me know if y'all like this card. Let me know which fights y'all want to see on UFC 310. Y'all make sure to drop a like on the video, hit that subscribe button, and we out.